Hello, chess Neurons. In this video, I'll be discussing a game between Gukesh versus world number one Magnus Carlsen from 2024 Freestyle Chess GOAT Challenge. This is a rapid game played in Chess 960 format. What is Chess 960? It is a variant of chess that was invented by former world champion Bobby Fischer. In this format, the starting position of the pieces are randomized. As you can see on the board, the pieces have been jumbled. They are not in the position that we usually see. So, what's the advantage of this format over the normal one? So, it is exciting because there is no opening theory in this format. So many positions are possible in so many ways. The pieces can be jumbled that it's difficult to prepare, and that makes the games more exciting because players have to start thinking from move one, and it leads to quite original positions from early part of the game. So this was the starting position in the game between Gukesh and Carlsen. So Gukesh has white pieces, and now let's look at the game. So Gukesh started with f4, and then Carlsen played c6. See, from the first move itself, after f4, c6, you have to be a bit careful now. Suddenly the queen is attacking this pawn. So if you're not careful, then you can get into trouble. So, of course, Gukesh defended it by playing g3. Carlsen played f5, knight f3. Development is still important in any format. That's what both players are doing. Gukesh played c3, attacking this pawn. So Carlsen currently exchanged this bishop. Now, it seems like maybe Gukesh could have taken this pawn because this knight is hanging. But it's a mistake because if he had taken this pawn, then Carlsen can play bishop e6, attacking the queen, and the rook gets defended. Rook defends the knight. So that's a problem. And once the queen moves, then the bishop will be back and Carlsen will be off a piece. So after bishop takes e1, Gukesh they captured the bishop. Then knight d6, this pawn was defended. Played d3. Carlsen played b5. He wants to put some pressure on the queen side. Then e4 was played. So Gukesh is putting his pawn in the center. And f takes e4 was played. D takes e4. Queen b6. Queen is getting on this important diagonal. Gukesh got his knight to d2. Now, Magnus played g5. He sacrificed a pawn on the king side to get some activity. Now, it's a mistake to capture with the knight because the rook would go. So Gukesh accepted the pawn sacrifice with the pawn. Then Magnus played knight e6, attacking this pawn because if the knight recaptures, then the rook will go. For that reason, Gukesh played rook e1. Then here, Carlsen played bishop f7, improving the bishop's position. It can go to g6. And there is also another reason. You are in it for a surprise. So, the format seems quite simple of chess 960. The pieces can get randomly placed. But then there is a question. What about king safety? What about castle? Can castle be done in chess 960? Yes, you can do the castle. So even if the king is on c8, you can bring it to g8 and then you can bring the rook to f8. And castle is allowed actually. If you want to do the long side castle, then you keep your king on c8 and bring the rook to d8 and long side castle. So castle is allowed in chess 960. But of course, you have to move all the. So for example, a move before castle would not be possible on the king side. On queen side, it would be possible, but on the king side, it would not be possible because the bishop is there. So then Carlsen played bishop f7, not only to bring the bishop out, but to clear the rank so that castle can happen. And in this position, Carlsen replied with castle on the king side. So that's something that is possible in chess 960. Now, let's go forward. So Gukesh played queen c2. So he is improving his queen's position. Now, Carlsen continues with his queen side expansion. So a5 was played. Then in this position, e5 was played by Gukesh. I think that the next move of Carlsen might have been underestimated by Gukesh because that allows Carlsen to improve his piece with a tempo and put more pressure on Gukesh. The move is bishop g6. Carlsen ignores this threat and improves the bishop to attack the queen. And now the position seems a bit tricky for Gukesh. So Gukesh takes the knight with a check. Carlsen recaptures, and after that, Carlsen brings the knight to b7. The plan of knight b7 is to go to c5, then to go to d3. In the process, Carlsen loses the second pawn, but that's not a worry for him because if the knight comes to c5 with a tempo, and if it goes to d3, then it is going to create a lot of issues for Gukesh. So Gukesh improved the knight's position and played knight d4. Carlsen played knight c5, improving the knight's position with a tempo. He gives third pawn in process, but look at Gukesh's king. It's extremely weak. So then Carlsen in this position plays knight b2 check. So he takes the pawn. By the way, in this position, he could have captured the queen and then he could have captured the rook. But even if we look at, so he got the rook for the knight, but even if you look from material perspective, Carlsen is not ahead because Gukesh has three pawns actually, and he has knight for the rook. So it's not that great. And more importantly, he did all this. He gave all these sacrifices to attack Gukesh's king, and now queens have been exchanged, so it's difficult for him to continue with the attack. So he played knight takes b2 check. So he took the pawn and kept Gukesh's king weak. Gukesh played king e2, and here Carlsen made his first mistake. He exchanged the queens. He should not have exchanged the queens because Gukesh's king is very weak in the center, and queen is the most important piece when it comes to attacks. Carlsen should have kept the queens, and queen d8 should have been played because the idea is that he wants to play rook c8, and then he wants to put pressure on this pawn, of course, on the queen. And if that pawn is gone, this knight will be attacked, and all of Carlsen's pieces will be attacking white, and it's extremely difficult for white to defend with such a weak king. So this is what Carlsen should have played, but he exchanged the queens, and that gives some relief to Gukesh. Now, it's quite normal in chess. One mistake is followed by the other. So Carlsen made the first mistake of exchanging the queens, and the second mistake that he did was that of playing rook c8. So it doesn't seem like a bad move at first because he's bringing the rook out in the tempo as the knight is being attacked. But the problem is that Gukesh can play e6. What has happened because of that? The rook is being attacked now, and if the rook moves, if Carlsen is not careful, and if the rook moves, then this pawn can fall, and this is a fork. So because of that, so Carlsen gave a check, but because of this, he has to go rook g7. Not one of the most active squares because this rook was quite active on this file. It was keeping that pressure on the king. But once that rook moved from that file, so the pressure that was on Gukesh's king is not there anymore. So for that reason, instead of rook c8, e6 should have been played. The rook should remain on this file, and that will help him combine with this knight and this bishop, and this rook will also later join in. Now rook c8 is possible. And it's not possible for Gukesh. It's not so easy for him to exchange this rook because if rook f1, then there is bishop d3 check, and he would be in trouble. So this is what Carlsen should have played, but he played rook c8. So then after this, he has recovered two pawns out of three. So he is just down a pawn. But the thing is, the king safety issue of Gukesh has largely been solved. So he played king d4. So this knight needs to be defended. So he brings the king in the center, and the knight, and the pawn as well. Then rook d8 check was played. Knight d7. Let's block it. Now the game continued. Bishop g4, rook e5, then rook g6, rook d5. Now Gukesh sets up a small trap. He wants to play knight f6 check and then win the rook. Uh, of course, Carlsen won't fall for it. So he moves the king, so the knight cannot move with the check. So he goes knight e5. He still wants to exchange the rooks. Rooks got exchanged. Now, in this position, as it can be noticed, this knight earlier that was putting a lot of pressure on White's king is now a bit awkwardly placed because pieces have been exchanged. So king safety is not an issue. King activity is, and that knight is also a bit awkwardly placed, and Gukesh's king is quite active. So Carlsen played rook h6 in this position, attacking this pawn. Rook b1, in this knight, this. Gukesh takes the queenside pawn. So, and he's planning to take this pawn as well. And after that, we'll have these two pass pawns. We can get some activity. Carlsen took this pawn. Now, Gukesh is not in a rush to capture this pawn. He's like, I have got a pass pawn. I want to push that pass pawn. That's what he went for. Then Carlsen played rook takes h2. See, this is what chess is for you. Carlsen was at some point down 3 pawns, but he was still better because Gukesh's king was weak. And in this position, Carlsen is up 1 pawn, but it is Gukesh who is fighting for the advantage because his king is active, his pieces are active, his fast pawn is dangerous. So how, despite being 3 pawns down, you can have better position, you can push, and despite being up a pawn, if your pieces are not active, if your opponent's pieces are active, and there is that pass pawn which is dangerous, then your opponent can have the advantage. So then this knight was being attacked. So Gukesh played knight df3. Then Carlsen brought back the rook to h6. Then Gukesh captured the a5 pawn, putting pressure on both of these pieces. After rook d6 check, played king c3. Knight c3, keeping the pressure on the knight, on the bishop. Then knight d1 check. Now the knight is still quite awkwardly placed. Carlsen saved the bishop by playing bishop b1. Now what? It's time to push the pass pawn. c5 was played. Rook d5. Time to push the pass pawn further. Bishop f5 was played. Push it further. c7. Knight b2. Then rook a2. So now the knight, it seems like, can escape through d3, but no. c8 queen is coming, deflecting the bishop and then capturing the knight. That's why knight d3 is not working. So in this position, Carlsen played knight d1. Gukesh played rook c2. Blundered the rook? No. Pawn promotion is happening. So bishop c8 was played. Knight d3. The knight on b1 is trapped. King f6. Rook c1. Time to get the knight. But of course, Carlsen is not going to give up so easily. He is not a world number one player without reason. He is going to fight till to the end. He played e5. He wants to play e4 and fork the knights. But Gukesh is also strong. He captured this pawn. Now it seems like the knight can escape through b2, but Gukesh had calculated further. He gave the check. Then see, in this position, if there is a king e6, then there is a problem because there are ideas of moves like rook f8, attacking this, and then white can win the bishop. There can be ideas of knight f4 check and then winning the rook. So this is too much for Carlsen to handle. So he played king e7 to stop rook f8 or knight f4 check type of ideas. But Gukesh has another check, knight c6 check. Now, see, he could not capture the knight earlier because this knight would go with the check. So he removed the knight. Then Carlsen played king d6. Another check. This knight is now defended. Now he can take that knight and he's up a piece. Then, so now he's up a piece with a clearly winning position. And then in this position, Gukesh decided to target Black's king with the help of rook and two knights, attacking the bishop. Check this. The mate threat is there. And here Carlsen decided. So he could have played bishop b7 to save that. But there is this rook f8 check, bishop c8. Gukesh is more than one way to win. So one of the ways is knight c5, stopping the king from coming here. The king can come here. Then knight e4, defending this pawn. And then one of these knights will go here, and then yeah, this will go. This is completely lost. So after knight b5, the game ended and Gukesh won. So it was pretty exciting game from Chess 960 format, and I'm looking forward to more of such exciting games from Gukesh and Carlsen. So thanks everyone for joining, and I'll see you in the next video.